Brother Trucker kicking it off for us, folks, on another gorgeous day in the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent. Yep, Des Moines, Iowa. It's where it's happening. As we speak, there's quite a little farmer's market going on down by the waterway. Yeah, just a beautiful day. Good to be alive, and good to be in Des Moines. We do have a mix of positive and troubling stories to talk about today. Later in the program, Mark Gruber with the Repertory Theater of Iowa is joining us to talk about the company's latest production, The Importance of Being Earnest. Looking forward to hearing from Mark about that. I got to touch on a couple things real quick toward the end of the show. Not enough time to really get into it, but the dust up between the Ombudsman's office and the Attorney General's office, and interestingly, can't get a response from the AG's office. Very disappointed in Tom Miller right now. Also, another state agency in big trouble. Well, the Public Safety Department. The Department of Public Safety, the head of that has been ousted. Branstad did something right. Cool. Anyway, we'll talk about that briefly. We'll also talk about the Iowa Board of Medicine's ruling on this telemedicine ruling relevant to abortion. The more you dig into that, the more you see how Branstad has stacked that board to be absolutely emphatically anti-choice. And this is the result. Okay, we're also going to interview Connie Bozen. She's one of the members of the Des Moines School Board, and she's up for re-election. And I'm honored to have her join us for a little conversation about why she's running for re-election. Also, we're going to talk about Syria. We're going to start off with that conversation, folks. And before we go any further on that, folks, tonight at 8 p.m. at Nolan Plaza, which I guess has changed names, although people are disagreeing on what name it should be called. But at Nolan Plaza, what we commonly refer to as Nolan Plaza, is the site of a vigil tonight, a vigil to demand that we not go to war in Syria. That's going to be 8 p.m. tonight, folks. If you can make that, great. And if not, spread the word, encourage others to come. Okay, so, Obama is lining up support on this. I'm just shocked at how easily he seems to be getting his congressional ducks in a row. But I guess when, ducks aren't that hard to get in a row. It's a lot easier to herd ducks than cats, trust me. But, around the globe or even around the country, the vast majority of Americans do not support a military intervention in Syria. And yet he seems to be heading in the direction of getting the congressional approval he wants. But to get public opinion on his side, to get the global community on his side, that's another matter. Here's what Martin Nazarski had to say. He's with the UN. He's the spokesman for the UN, in fact. And he said that any notion that the departure of the chemical weapons inspection team from Syria opened a window for a U.S. attack is, quote, grotesque. He called it grotesque. Strong language. Nazarski said that about 1,000 international and UN staff members remain in Syria, and the UN is just as concerned about their welfare as it was about the inspectors. Again, the will to engage in an armed conflict in Syria is just not there. And there's so many reasons. Dennis Kucinich laid out those reasons very articulately. I shared those a little bit with you folks yesterday. We'll talk more about that too. But first, I want to go to my... You never know where you're going to find allies in politics. Well, my newest ally in the effort to push for peace in Syria, or push for a diplomatic, or at least a unified multilateral approach to the conflict there. The new ally is the heads of the Iowa Republican Party. Who knew? I wrote to A.J. Spiker this morning, invited him on the program. He said he could not make it. Deferred to David Fisher, the other author of the opinion piece in today's Des Moines Register. And haven't heard back from him, but if we can get them on this program at some point, I'd be happy to have that conversation. I almost want to say I almost could have written this piece in terms of what the message is, and I'll share it with you. President Obama, they write, we oppose the beginning of another war by bombing Syria. Yeah, welcome to the peace movement. Who knew? The heads of the Iowa Republican Party, part of the peace movement. Okay, we believe the prosperity of America's next generation is worth more than profits for defense contractors and the bump in the polls you and your fellow politicians may receive from portraying yourselves as wartime leaders. This from the heads of the Republican Party. I mean, criticizing profits for defense contractors, criticizing politicians who do things to get a bump in the polls. This from the heads of the Republican Party in Iowa. And again, I don't doubt that they may be out of step with the Republican leadership elsewhere in the country, maybe elsewhere in this state. I mean, certainly we've seen John Boehner and Eric Cantor and other typical hawks in the U.S. Congress and Senate are now lining up behind Obama. But here you have the heads of the party here in Iowa speaking language that, again, that any of my friends in the peace movement probably could have written. They go on to say, we proclaim to set the standard, we meaning not these guys, meaning America. America proclaims to set the standard for freedom, the standard for freedom and liberty. Yet we trample our Constitution, spy on our citizens, engage in nation building, and continue to police other countries, whether their residents want us there or not. What we have to show for all these military engagements is death, destruction, more enemies, and a broken economy with a national debt that is now over $17 trillion and climbing. Again, I could have written that, but I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, that's hitting the nail on the head. And again, I think part of this is the Ron Paul influence. Okay, and while I think Ron Paul is off the deep end on some issues, and maybe in many ways, on foreign policy, is a guy who gets it. He gets it, and I think that's where the influence here is coming from. Spiker and Fisher go on to say American intervention is likely to make things worse and create new enemies. Yeah, and we have plenty of evidence to show that that's the case. So why any surprise that this would not turn out any differently? Now, they point out that 90% of Americans oppose a war in Syria. I have heard that. I'd like to see that poll. I have not seen the actual questions being asked, who conducted the poll. I am pretty certain that the proponents of war are working on some other language for some other poll that would come up with some different result. Because, I mean, no politician does anything. I mean, come on. Not even the boldest of politicians does anything when 90% of the public are against you. So again, Obama can get the U.S. Congress on his side. He's got France on his side. Woohoo, France. I mean, wasn't it just a few years ago we were like boycotting French food? We were changing the name of the French fry to Patriot fry. What was it, Matty? Like Patriot fries or American fries or something equally embarrassing. But now, we can't get Britain on our side. Nope. The Parliament and the leadership in Great Britain coming out against going to war. But France, they're with us. Go figure. Okay, so they write, this is an interesting comment in their column. Spiker and Fisher write, together with our wives, we have 5 children, aged 10 and under. I'm saying wow to that. Okay, they have never known a world in which the U.S. was not at war. It's marked their childhood and surrounded them with a pervasive war on terror culture that benefits politicians who are ready to support this narrative, particularly at election time. Yeah, I would say I'm 55. I have never known a country that has not been at war either. You know, whether it's the Cold War or Korea. I mean, I was just on the tail end of Korea, Vietnam, Grenada. I mean, so many other smaller excursions that were still acts of war. I have not known a country that has not been at war. I remember as a kid, I was quite young. I was in my single digits, and my dad and mom had been working at General Electric. They met at General Electric. My mom went on to be a homemaker. My dad went on to work for the Department of Defense. But the GE plant was just about, 3 miles away. But it was across a wide open space. They saw a marsh, and across the marsh you could hear the sounds of the workers testing the engines for the airplanes for warplanes at GE. And I didn't know what was going on. I just knew there was this factory down the road where my mom and dad had met, and I knew that factory made loud noises sometimes. That's all I knew. I had no idea what these noises were, but I did know there was a place called Vietnam, and I knew we were at war in Vietnam, and I knew that men and women, young men and women, were dying there, and I knew that bothered me. That bothered me a lot, and I didn't have enough concept. I didn't have a framework in which to understand why it bothered me. But I was afraid. I was afraid that whatever was going on there was going to come here and get me and get my family, get my community. I didn't know anything. I didn't even have a visual on what the Vietnamese looked like. I just knew that there was this word Vietnam, bad things were happening, and why am I safe from that? Why is that not going to come back to bite me? And I remember being terrified on the night that I heard the engines being tested down at General Electric. They were loud. They were coming across the marsh into my bedroom window. It was disturbing. I remember crying. I remember being scared. I remember telling my mother, "Are they going to come and get us? Are they going to come and get us here?" And I never made the connection. I didn't even know what was happening. I just heard that engine, and it scared me. And it made me think of the war. It made me think of the possibility that I could be a victim here. So yeah, I relate to these. I relate to my Republican friends, my newfound best political allies, A.J. Spiker, David Fisher, who are concerned about their kids living in a country that has never not been at war. And I say, yeah, it's a problem. And it's been a problem for my entire 55 years of life on this planet. And it's got to end. This is a good point to end it. This is a really good place to stop any further incursions into this adventurism that has become standard military policy in this country. And it's not just a Republican thing. Clearly, Republicans are on the right side in this case, at least some of them. It's not just a Democratic thing. And we have Senator Harkin, I think, and Dennis Kucinich. Kucinich speaking up very powerfully against what the president wants to do, and laying out the facts. You should go to his letter. I included some of it in the update I sent out yesterday. It's posted on my website on FallonForum.com, and it lists the facts that are being conveniently ignored as the drumbeats for war continue to accelerate. So go to that, check it out. I think what Kucinich has to say is right on the mark. I think what A.J. Spiker and David Fisher, heads of the Iowa Republican Party, say is right on the mark, and I really commend them for it. You know, politics is odd, folks. You always find you find fellow travelers in the strangest of places, people you might not normally feel comfortable with. You might be normally fighting like cats and dogs. Well, in this one, I tell you, they hit the nail on the head. I don't know any long-term Iowa peace activist who could have said it any better than the heads of the Iowa Republican Party. And remind you folks, tonight, 8 p.m. at Nolan Plaza, a vigil to demand that the president and the U.S. Congress not launch us into another war. Again, there are diplomatic approaches that might work. There are multilateral approaches. Let's listen to our friends and allies in the UN. There are other ways to deal with this problem. Let's not make the same mistake again that we have made so many times before, that we recently made in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Kuwait. Let's not do this again. All right, we're going to talk with Connie Boesen when we come back, folks. She's a member of the Des Moines School Board, and she is a candidate for re-election to the school board. September 10th, just coming up right around the corner, is the election. And if you're listening outside the Des Moines area, yes, you have a school board election as well. That will happen on September 10th, whether you're in Des Moines or Lyon County or Fremont County or any corner of Iowa. That's the election for candidates to the school board. I do want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring the Fallon Forum. And I want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show, and remind you to help support the businesses that make this show possible. Gateway Market's a great place, a local business, keeping their money here in the local community. Check them out at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. I also want to thank a couple of my Newton business supporters, Dan Kelly's Real Estate Business, and also Diana's Wedding Cakes. And I want to remind you as well of a great place for lunch, Fighting Burrito. In Ames on Welch Avenue, also here in Des Moines, on 13th Street, just south of Locust Street, in the Nationwide building, custom-made burritos at very affordable prices. When we come back, folks, Connie Boesen with the Des Moines School Board joining us for a conversation about why she's running for re-election.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little, until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Mr. Baber's Neighbor's Ode to Jones, bringing us back to our conversation here on the Fallon Forum. I want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show. That's the IES, folks, and it's happening on November 9th at Drake University. If you've got a business idea, you want to start one, you want to grow one, you want to understand how to make it work better, go to the IES's event, folks. It's a great event for only $35, an entire day of instruction on all the different aspects of what you need to know to make your business successful. Go online to register. It's iesusa.org. Okay, later in the program, we're going to talk about the Iowa Medical Board's, Iowa Board of Medicine's rejection of a practice that's been in place since 2008, relevant to rural women in rural areas who might, for one reason or another, need or choose an abortion. That's quite a bit of controversy involved with that. Some other stuff happening in state government. We'll talk about that later in the program. But right now, I am delighted to have Connie Bozen in the studio with me. She is the first to respond to my invitation to be on this program, and I'm very grateful that she did, and looking forward to talking with her about why she's running for re-election for a job that pays nothing other than lots of headaches.
Well, there's lots of rewards.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear you say that. I mean, it is a really important position. The Des Moines School District is, the third largest budget in the state?
It probably is. I don't know how it rates, but it's very large. It's over $400 million.
Yeah, and 30,000 plus students.
32,000 plus students.
Yeah. And this will be your third term should you win re-election?
No, this would be my fourth term.
Fourth term. Sorry.
That's okay. I've been on for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Now there's some, the board has come under a lot of criticism in recent, months. Some have seen it as dysfunctional, and kind of that's kind of been, projected to the entire district as a whole. How do you respond to those concerns that people have raised about the board being dysfunctional?
I think that you have to look at what's going on in our district, and we're seeing academic gains, we're seeing achievement gaps narrowing, we're seeing a strong budget, we're seeing equity being delivered throughout. I think you have to look at results. Yes, boards, every board has some issues, but in the most part, if you look at what actually is being done, there's a lot of great work being done by thousands of employees to make a difference for the students in Des Moines.
And again, one of those, perhaps the most acute example of the public's perception of dysfunction relates to Nancy Sebring. And I see you were fortunate enough, and they say that if you get your name in the paper prior to an election, as long as they spell your name right, it's good press. This is somebody who is pretty critical. She says that that there are important issues that you're trying to avoid. How will you vote on dealing with the Nancy Sebring lawsuit? Will you vote for a cash settlement? Will you vote to have the case go to trial? I mean, did you, maybe you got on this gal's wrong side at some point, I don't know. But she basically accuses you of a conflict of interest, of like cozying up with Sebring so that you don't have an objective viewpoint on what to do with this lawsuit. I mean, what's your response to that?
First of all, there should be no comment by a board member. We're in litigation. It would be not in the best judgment to make any comments on that.
Yeah.
Just to comment about when you are a board chair, or if you've been on the board as long as I have, especially as board chair, you work very closely with the superintendent.
Oh, you'd have to, I would think.
You have to,
yeah.
because you do the agenda plan, not only agenda planning, but if anything that comes up. And I was a board chair for 2 years during the time that Dr. Sebring was there. And I also work full time. A lot of people don't realize that we do not get paid. I had a full-time job that I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And the only time I could meet with Dr. Sebring was after hours. She was kind enough to take time to meet with me so we could go over the issues that we would have to go over, whether it be agenda planning and things like that. So unfortunately, I believe the perception is wrong. I held her as accountable to performance as I did Dr. Witherspoon, and as we will Tom Ahart. Yeah. It's very clear when you have accountability standards, as we have, how do you review somebody? If you're making progress, then you give them a good review. If not, so I can be very objective. I come from a retail background where I was based on what my performance was, and that's what we hold the accountability for all superintendents to.
Folks, we're talking with Connie Boesen, a member of the Des Moines School Board for a long time, 4 terms now, and running for re-election. You're welcome to join the conversation. If you have a question or a comment, you can call 244-0077, 244-0077, or you can let me ask all the tough questions. Either way. All right, so just to wrap up the question about superintendents, again, I think a lot of people were surprised at what happened with Nancy Sebring. I know you can't talk about the lawsuit, but reflecting on the past, I presume that took you by surprise.
It took me totally by surprise.
Yeah.
If I had such a close relationship, you would think I would have known. I had no idea. Totally surprised.
And I can relate to that. I mean, I've had dealings with people in the past who seem to be one way, and then boom, out of the blue, you find out something you never had a clue about, and it just kind of floors you. So I can kind of understand that.
I kind of say that too. A lot of these issues are adult issues, and it had nothing, as far as what's going on in our buildings. That's what we need to be focused on. Mm-hmm. What are we doing for our students, and how are we making it better for them and outcomes for them? And
that's a good point too. I mean, a lot of what I'm hearing from, the public those in the general public who are dissatisfied with the direction of the Des Moines School District is they feel that the board has been spending a lot of time on people's personal agendas, board members' agendas, personnel issues, and not focused on what really matters to the kids themselves. How would you respond to that concern?
Well, I think the board does spend a lot of time regarding the concerns. We just spent 2 hours in a work session going over our achievements that we've gotten from our Iowa assessments. And then we'll have a full presentation at the next board meeting. We've set up a complete monitoring schedule where we will be we have monitor reports that we're given, and then we will be able to assess how, where we're at in the district. So I think more focus is there. It's just that news doesn't cover the academics. They cover the adult issues. Mm. And I think that people have not been given all the information and the good things that are going on in our district. We have hundreds of students doing really well, thousands of students doing really well. Our PR department's winning awards. Our financial department is winning awards. We're getting all kinds of accolades for what we're accomplishing, and I think that sometimes that doesn't get covered.
I mean, it certainly is. It can be the case that the media tends to focus on the glitzy stuff, which may not be the nuts and bolts that really matter. So, yeah. How do you just again about superintendents? How do you feel about the new guy, Tom Ahart?
Well, I'm very supportive. I voted to hire him. I think he came with a good track record. He had been the principal of Harding. He had turned that building around. He has had curriculum experience. He had HR experience. And he was in the interim position. And if you look at our scores that we're having right now, he's a part of that success. Yeah. And I think he's from Des Moines.
Yeah. Now, the fact that there were 3 board members who voted against him, is there any residual hard feelings from that? Is that something the board's been able to get beyond?
I think so. Okay. I think, people had their opinions, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I believe we made the right choice, and I think that we're seeing he's put together a new team and a new direction of how we want to go, and I think that we will see great things happening, even better than we're doing well. We've got a lot of things in place, and I think we're just going to the next level.
Yeah. How do you feel about the legislative sessions? Education reform bill this past year. Positive, negative.
Well, I think there were a lot of there's a lot of good things. One of the great things that we have funding for 2 years. I've lived through the toughest financial times, I think, in the last how many years?
Yeah, I was in the state house for some of that.
Right, when we went through a 10% across the board cut, when you had then on top of it underfunding what they had said they were going to. So I think that we finally have the funding to stabilize what's going on. I mean, to be able to have a budget where you're not worrying about what you're going to cut was so much easier, and you know that you can move forward. There's many things we wanted to do that you just had to make adjustments for. And the bigger part is the time and attention it takes from the administration on doing budgets away from what they're supposed to be doing, and that's doing education.
Well, especially when the legislature fails to meet its own statutory deadline in early February. And, you've got to have your budget in place by then in order to have the school year ready to roll in August. And if they aren't working on it, or aren't getting it done till April or May, that's problematic.
It's very difficult, especially when you have to get contracts and everything approved before you even know what money you have.
Yeah. Okay, so how would you describe your top priority? Again, you've been there a while. If you get reelected, what would you say your priorities are going to be?
One of my priorities is still the continuing. You have to look at our demographics of our district. We went from less than 50% free and reduced lunch to over 70 in 10 years. We went from like around 2,200 ELL students to over 5,300. So I think the dynamics of the district has changed dramatically. And in spite of that, we have made dramatic gains. In any other district, I think you would have had decreases in academics based on the student population. So I think we've been able to address the issues that are coming forward. So ELL, English language learners, getting extra funding for them. Still, I have a strong advocate for preschool. When I first got on this board, my true belief was that in order to change academics, we had to get kids ready for school. Right. So I lobbied and got about $3 million of extra funding to increase preschool classrooms in our community. And it also helped coordinate preschool delivery for the complete community of Des Moines. Right. So that's another thing I would advocate.
So one of the other successes of the Des Moines district, a great success, I think, is the Montessori program at Coles Elementary School. And a waiting list of over 300 kids. You've got to be on that waiting list for years to get in. Is there any talk about expanding the Montessori program so that you've got another building, maybe two other buildings where kids can go because of the popularity?
Yes, there is talk of that, and they're trying to work out where that could be, whether if we build a new school on the south side, there was some mention, or whether a current school building would want to maybe say they want to offer Montessori. I think there's a lot of options, and I think that's one thing that's great about the Des Moines district. We offer options. The International Baccalaureate program. Yeah.
7 schools doing that, right?
Right, and it's created, what we did was also the big thing, I think, since we've been on the board, is create equity. Right. Equity, IB is in every area of the city. We also increased advanced placement courses in every high school. When my children went to East, there were 2 or 3 classes. Roosevelt had 11. We now have all high schools equal amount of advanced placement classes. Right. So East went from 50 kids to 600 kids enrolled. Again, a tremendous opportunity for all students in every building.
So when do you think a Montessori school might be opened in another part of the district?
I really don't know. It would be something that we'd have to discuss and see what would happen and where the demand, where people are living, and kind of see assess it. But it could be soon. And
what about a Waldorf approach? Waldorf and Montessori are similar. There's differences. Some parents prefer the Waldorf approach. Any talk about possibly opening a Waldorf building?
I've never heard the Waldorf brought up as as a potential, but
until now.
But I think that's one thing. We're flexible. As my old boss used to say, be fixed in your goals, but flexible in your approach.
There you go.
And I think that, if there's a demand for it, and if we see that that's something we can support, because you have to be able to have continuity and support it, then I think people are open to opportunities to be offered to students. One
thing that was very important to me when my kids were in the school district was the fine arts program at Edmonds Academy. That was a magnet school. It was very popular. It ran into problems and collapsed essentially. And I think there's a lot of people who want to see fine arts restored to the prominence that it had back in the 70s and 80s with the program at Edmonds. Is there talk about any movement in that direction?
There's movement to have it in all schools. As you know, Findlay got an arts grant, and we just recognized 2 of the teachers at Findlay. They're like art teachers of the year. And I think that the thing would be that I want it enhanced in all schools. And I don't know if you've seen the new Edmonds School. It's not a fine arts academy, but again, the building is phenomenal.
I hope the building is better than. I mean, the Edmonds program was great. The building was horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we will have both.
I hate seeing buildings get torn down. In the case of Edmonds, I'll make an exception. Again, but the program was what was really attractive.
And I think that that's what you want to build in all your schools. You want to have the strongest fine arts program, and I think you have a superintendent that supports the arts.
Yeah.
And there's been a strong commitment to the arts, and we also have a new person in charge of all activities and getting more things going other than just sports. It's also the fine arts programs and extra things that bring and get kids engaged.
Well, Connie, thank you so much for joining us, folks. Connie Bozen, a longtime member of the Des Moines School Board, running for re-election. And good luck on Election Day, September 10th, folks. Be sure to vote for your school board candidates next Tuesday. Again, when we come back, we're going to talk about the ruling on the telemedical ruling relevant to abortion. This is a strange battle, and Maria Filippone is going to join us for that conversation. Later in the program, Mark Gruber with the Repertory Theater of Iowa will be our guest. I do want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show, and remind folks to go online at iesusa.org and sign up for it's only $35 for an entire day of instruction on how to start and manage your business. I also want to thank a couple of my business supporters, Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering up in Connie's area. Right? That's right.
I'm an East Sider.
You're the East Sider, but I think
the East Side
I think of
Bozen.
Bozen, and I think of the florist, and I think it's right down the street from Tally's.
Well, I am the East Side Bozen.
You are, that's right. Anyway, there's a bunch of West Side Bozens as well, and they're not far from Tally's, which is a great restaurant with a patio seating on the roof that I love this time of the year. Also, folks, a Hawk restaurant in the East Village. Suman and Cynthia Hawk get 90% of the food they serve from Iowa farms. Check them out. That's Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut. I'll be back in just a couple minutes talking about the Iowa Board of Medicine's politicized nature now that Branstad has decided to take it in a certain direction.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the Fallon Forum. That's Max Wellman, and I want to thank Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut for sponsoring this segment of our show. Mark Gruber with the Repertory Theater of Iowa is going to join us in a bit, but first we're going to talk about the Iowa Board of Medicine. You know, this used to be a board that was reasonable, that made decisions that seemed balanced and not politicized, but Governor Branstad has used his power, I'm going to say abused his power, to basically politicize a board that is, I've never known it to be this political. I mean, when it starts weighing in on an issue relevant to abortion, a practice that has been in place since 2008. Okay, and again, the Des Moines Register. Again, I have a love-hate relationship with the Des Moines Register, but they nailed this one just on the head. In 2008, you know, Planned Parenthood started using this video conferencing system to link women in rural areas who might not be able to get to Des Moines or the big city. They linked those women to physicians who were able to prescribe a federally approved, it's a legal approved drug program that would terminate a pregnancy. Again, never a happy moment, but you know, how much more miserable is it to have to travel a long distance just to take a pill? I mean, this is driving a couple hundred miles to take a pill. That would make no sense at all. So the board, though, originally approved this, originally had no trouble with it, voted 8-2 to basically kill the telemedicine program. I guess I should not be shocked because you see what Governor Branstad has done on so many levels to try to politicize state government, to take what should be a function of the government's administrative responsibility and make it take it in a direction to satisfy a very narrow, specific political constituency. I want to welcome Maria Filippone to the show. Maria, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for your letter to the editor this morning on this subject. And you're a physician.
Yes, I am.
And I'm just interested in how I'm sure you've been tracking this problem, this debate. What would you add to the conversation on this?
Well, I would add to the conversation that in 2011, this exact issue came before this board, the Medical Board of Examiners, and they actually scientifically evaluated the question and the situation and came to the conclusion that it is not harmful to women, that it is okay, and it is safe. And opening what they've done is open the door to further scrutiny on all forms of telemedicine, which would incapacitate the medical system in the state of Iowa if all forms of telemedicine were evaluated this strictly.
Yeah, well, and the Register makes that point too.
Yes.
You know, they say if the Iowa Board of Medicine is so concerned about women's reproductive health care, and again, the chair of the board, Hovertston, says, has this horrible description of what happens, and that's. Again, he says the woman essentially goes home and labors and delivers a fetus. It's very bloody. It's painful. But of the 3,000 women in Iowa that have been through this process, again, it's never a great moment in one's life. It's got to be painful for one reason or another, probably more so emotionally than anything.
Well, of course, and it takes it back to the core of what the center of this issue is. The core of this issue is this is about this is so personal. This is about women's choices, women's reproductive freedom, women's autonomy over their own body.
Right.
And to to say that you're doing this because you're concerned about women's health it's not straightforward. It's a lie. And this is such a personal issue that the more that as time goes on and I see how political abortion is, the more infuriated I get because it is so personal. It's nobody else's business. It's okay to not like it and to be against it.
Right.
And if you are against it and you don't like it, don't have one. But you have no right to tell anybody what they can or cannot do.
And this would apply. This would apply even in the case of a woman who is a victim of incest or rape, or it's been determined that the fetus is extremely deformed. I mean, this applies. This is a handpicked political board in Des Moines making a decision that affects women for a whole host of reasons.
Exactly. And the board, like I said, 2 years ago, visited this issue initially and came to the opposite conclusion that this board came to. And since Branstad became governor, he appointed the whole entire board with people with his own political persuasions as far as abortion goes.
Yeah. And the Register points out, too, that this is a reminder that elections have consequences. You know, I know there are some moderate Republicans who supported Branstad who probably didn't like the even more extreme positions that his opponent Bob Vanderplaats espoused. That probably now think, well, I guess we got this is something Bob Vanderplaats would have done. This is something that appeases the far right wing of the Republican Party.
Exactly, it does. Exactly, It's really unfortunate because this. You have no idea how many other facets of medicine use telemedicine for rural areas to just meet the basic needs of people in rural areas. And this is opening such a can of worms. They have no idea how, this affects radiology, psychiatry, so many different areas of medicine.
Yeah, but I have a feeling they're not going to do anything about those areas because they, again, this is political. It's not really about it. I mean, the Register asks, I think, a very interesting rhetorical question. They say, if the Board of Medicine is so concerned about women's reproductive health care, the board should revisit the practice of medicine in Iowa when it comes to delivering a baby.
Right, and midwives, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Iowa allows people with, that ends up being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, people with no medical delivery, no medical experience to deliver babies. Perhaps the board should require that only licensed physicians can deliver babies in Iowa. Now, I know they don't really mean that, but yeah, if they want to be consistent, that's the direction this would go.
Exactly, and I truly support midwives. I had my third child delivered by a midwife. I love that option, and I believe women should have all kinds of options when it comes to reproductive issues. But yeah, no, if they were to be just and critical thinking in this recent decision, then they should reevaluate all other forms of telemedicine and the midwife issue.
Right. But we know it's not about being consistent or really about medical practices.
Exactly. It's about trying to control women and take power away from women. That's just what it's about.
Yeah. So what happens next? What's your sense of where this might go next?
Oh, I have a sense that Planned Parenthood has a plan to fight this.
Could there be a lawsuit?
I'm not sure, but I hope so. I think Jill June would be a wonderful guest for your forum.
Yeah, I've had Jill on before, and she's always an excellent guest. That's a good idea. Because I really don't know what options they have with the medical board making this decision. I don't know what options proponents of choice have at this point.
Right. I feel like the prior board from 2011 who did revisit this issue, I do know that they spent a great deal of time and energy discussing this and researching it and everything. So they came to a well-researched, well-thought-out position.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they're all pretty disgusted right now.
Yeah.
That all their work is for nothing.
Well, certainly one thing that people can do is to look at the 2014 election, and I don't have a real strong feeling about who wins that race. I just have a real strong feeling about who loses it, and I really hope Governor Branstad loses. I'm getting so fed up with his policies. He's so much worse than he was when I served with him back in the 1990s. Bad enough, but
too bad.
but this is an example. This is an extreme position, contrary to reason in many levels, contrary to the core of the Republican Party in many levels. And
Exactly.
I think the only way it's going to change. I mean, again, there are 10 members on that board. He has appointed all of them. It's going to take a new governor for new appointments to I think, to send this decision in a different direction. So
Exactly. I think that's what it's going to take. And people to stand up and claim their rights and to speak out.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us.
I like your show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Folks, again, I want to thank Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut for sponsoring this segment of our show. Again, 90% of the food you will eat at Hawk Restaurant comes from Iowa farms, Iowa producers. Check them out. That's HOQ Restaurant in the East Village. I also want to thank Ritual Cafe, one of my favorite places for a cup of tea, a smoothie, a panini. They're on 13th Street between Locust and Walnut. Locust and Grand. And right now across from them is a big farmers market going on. Just walk through it on the way here. I also want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit and remind folks that if you're interested in starting your own business, the IES is the place to be on November 9th at Drake University. Check out all the folks who help make this show possible on the Fallon Forum website, fallonforum.com. But when we come back, we're going to talk with Mark Gruber with the Repertory Theater of Iowa about the importance of being earnest.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks, and I want to thank the Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. Fighting Burrito, 2 locations now, one in Ames on 117 Welch Ave, and in Des Moines on 13th Street, just south of Locust, in the Nationwide building. I tend to get the same thing every time I go in there because I've finally found what I absolutely love. But the cool thing about Fighting Burrito is you can craft your own burrito and pay very little for it. It's a big burrito for a small price tag. Check them out, folks. That's Fighting Burrito. Okay, we're going to talk. We're going to switch to the cultural and culinary side of Des Moines, fame. Right? We're hotbed of political activism, yes, but we're also got all sorts of stuff going on culturally as well, including the great work of the Repertory Theater of Iowa And one of my guests today has been here before, Mark Gruber. Mark is a longtime member of the troupe and involved with the most recent upcoming production of The Importance of Being Earnest. So why is it important to be earnest?
Well, they'll have to come on the 13th of September to answer that question. We're playing the last 3 weekends of September, and live theater is very alive and well, and the Repertory Theater hopes to be, that flagship professional theater group in Des Moines to present. We're doing this at the Kirkwood.
Where the social club was.
Yeah, and we'll be also in the remaining part of our season with the productions of Thornton Wilder, Our Town, and with Arthur Miller's The Crucible. Mm-hmm. Those productions will be then in the spring, winter and spring month, February and April, I guess, for RTI at the new space with the social club at the Firehouse.
The Firehouse over on 9th and Mulberry, I think, right?
Yes, we are waiting with great hope that things will be shiny and new, and a new start with RTI in that space.
Good. Yeah, and your most recent, I think it was your most recent production of Shakespeare, Midsummer's Night Dream.
Yes.
At the Salisbury House. That was fantastic. You were sensational.
I made an ass of myself all summer long.
You made an ass of yourself?
I did. And
see, I do that every day I'm on this program.
You're a great ass, Ed. And
Thank you very much.
For all things that are appropriately political and otherwise, I think you are a necessary voice for those asses in Des Moines and Central Iowa.
Right.
I guess if we're broadcasting further than that.
I don't know how far we want to go with the ass metaphor when we talk about one of the two major parties using that as its emblem.
Oh, that's true. Well, we can stomp around like elephants.
We won't mention which one.
But
so no, you were. It was a fantastic performance. You were sensational. I bailed out on the last, I think, probably 3 minutes of the play. I was on my bike. A massive thunderstorm was coming in, and I was not going to wait. I'm standing in the back there with Richard Maynard, thinking, Richard, can I go now? Can I go now?
Yeah, no, you had to
and
say.
Finally, a big clap of thunder said, "You're going now."
You didn't want to be on your bike with that weather. I think we were so treated well by the weather. We had every performance, not one performance was rained out. And that very performance you were at, Ed, was exciting because we were waiting for the rain to break open and chase everyone like scurrying mice. But we made it through. It was a delightful evening outdoors at the Salisbury House.
So for those who don't know what The Importance of Being Earnest is about, what's the general synopsis?
This play by Oscar Wilde, and if you know anything about Oscar Wilde, he was quite the both political and social figure in London in the 1890s. So Victorian England is the backdrop. And if you have a picture of Victorian England as being rather stodgy and very proper and British, you had a gentleman in Oscar Wilde who was ready to poke at every possible angle of that stodginess. And I often say to people who kind of want to know what satire, think of Jon Stewart and others on the Comedy Central, and the satire of that brand that's alive and well today was on the stage of London in the voice of someone like Oscar Wilde. So if both political and social satire, he poked them all, and Oscar Wilde was a good
poker.
He poked them all and with equal measure. I wanted to quote a little bit from the play just to give you a flavor of it. If my British accent, can I do that?
I don't know if you can do a British accent, but you can certainly give it a shot.
There's 8 characters in this play, and Lady Bracknell represents the matriarch, and her daughter is to be married if it meets her approval. Jack is one of the quartet of lovers who is offered his hand in marriage.
One of the suitors. Okay.
Yeah, one of the suitors to Gwendolen, that Gwendolen being Lady Bracknell's daughter. So Lady Bracknell must first investigate the worthiness of Mr. Worthing. That's Jack Worthing. So it goes like this. Lady Bracknell asks Jack, I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know? And
that is a great line.
With some hesitation, Jack answers Lady Bracknell. I know nothing, Lady Bracknell. I am pleased to hear it, says Lady Bracknell. I do not approve of anything that tampers with the natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square.
That's a good observation. Yeah.
That's Lady Bracknell. Come Hear Her. That's played by our Kim Grimaldi, one of our RTI members.
Yes, who else is in the play?
Carrie Scram and Eric Lee, Sean Wilson, and Katie Merriman. They make up the quartet.
The usual cast of suspects.
Well, Eric and Katie are joining our company as guests, and Sean and Kim are company members, as are Rich Richards, who plays an important role of Lane the butler.
He's the tall fellow who is always in the Christmas Carol.
Oh yes, Christmas Carol. He plays Marley. And,
Marley. Yes. He looks
Rich.
great in chains.
Rich is.
Tell him I think he looks great in chains.
I'll tell Rich that you said so. And Rich is leading our efforts as the president of our board currently, so he has a very important role beyond playing a part in the importance of being earnest.
So what I always like to try to figure out what is the relevance of the play written so long ago for today? What in what ways do you see it having some important commentary on the events of today?
Well, satire goes broad and it reaches widely to. It's a peculiar brand of comedy. This is a very funny play. There are funny characters, and the situation that Oscar Wilde has invented is like a little Swiss watch. It's so delicately put together, and as it unfolds,
delicate and complex.
It is. It's complex because in the 2 hours that you watch, you're rather delighted by the machinations of each character and how the collision of personalities and supposed personalities. You'll have to come and understand what.
Yeah, what does that mean? What is a supposed personality?
Well, it goes to the nature of what it is to be earnest.
Okay, right.
And everyone likes to get away and have a little vacation of the mind, even if they don't get to travel outside Des Moines. And quality.
That's where schizophrenia comes in.
Alive and well in London. The schizophrenia of London is alive and well today. And the play is very appropriate because we have the universal ways of satire unfolding in this play was true then, it's true now. We all need an escape. And in so escaping, these men find themselves in a rather precarious posture of winning the lady of their dreams, and they have to unpack all of what they've created in the way of their pretenses. So
maybe not so much relevant to the broader issues of the political realm, but a lot of issues at the personal level that most of us have to deal with at some point in our life.
Well, true. Even just the quote that I gave is a real poke at very specific personalities, and Oscar Wilde from the stage created several firestorms of controversy, and he was not opposed to poking the eye of those who needed a little poke. And that's what satire does well. And, Jon Stewart on the Today Show, I think, would
lots of eye poking going on there.
Sure. And it's not just,
mostly
English
Republican eyes.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know if Mr. Wilde was political nature was, he makes some Labor Party jokes in here, but the Labor Party of Victorian England. And
very different than the one today.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so unfolding for Jack and Algernon. It's kind of a buddy play in some ways. These two gentlemen find how they can mix it up and win the lady of their dreams in the end.
I can't hear the name Algernon without thinking of a mouse.
Is there an Algernon character in a mouse story?
Flowers for Algernon.
Oh, Flowers for Algernon,
yeah,
sure.
that mouse, yeah.
Oh, that mouse,
anyway.
Sure.
Well, this is great. When is it starts on the 13th.
Friday, we're opening Friday the 13th.
Nice, that's fortuitous.
I would think if you had, an opportunity to go out on Friday the 13th, the Kirkwood would be the place to be.
Yeah, you'd be safer there than doing some other things you might get in trouble for.
Safety's important. Yeah, yes, thank you, Ed.
So the 13th and 14th, and then the next 2 weekends as well.
Right, through the 29th. You can play Thursday through Saturday, and Sundays there is matinees.
Let's see, you got 4 productions each week.
Well, we open on that Friday. So there's 11 performances through the 29th. So you'll want to dial up RTI.com. That's what you need to do. Dial up RTI.com.
Okay. And tickets are how much?
I believe 22 to 25 is the adult price, but students get in at a $12 price.
Good. Yeah.
We cater to students, and seniors do also have a discount, major discount. So the great ticket in town through the 13th through the 29th.
Right. Well, I look forward to it myself. Folks, I hope you take the time to check it out. RTI's productions are always provocative, incredibly well done. I mean, really high quality. We should be very, very proud of all the theater going on in Des Moines. Again, we have several companies, and RTI has been among the longtime leaders in terms of presenting really, really good theater. And don't be afraid to pay a little bit for it. I mean, yeah, you're going to go out for dinner. You'll easily pay more than what you'd pay for a couple tickets to RTA's production. So again, check them out, folks. The next 3 weekends at the Des Moines Social Club's old location at the Kirkwood Hotel. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ed, for having us. 13th of September is the first weekend.
Right.
So.
Just think of Friday the 13th. That's
Yeah.
when it starts. But it's okay. It's okay.
a
Do not worry.
scary importance.
You know what else Friday the 13th is?
What is it?
My mama's birthday. And she turned out just fine.
If I can remember to, we'll sing Happy Birthday that
All
very
right.
evening. Come
Thanks
and join.
again, folks. Again, I want to thank the Fighting Burrito. I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, all the businesses that make this show possible. And also, of course, Gateway Market, my anchor sponsor. I want to thank Maddie Kane, my producer, and Webcast One Live for providing this studio. See you tomorrow.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.